good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming by. I know it's towards the end of the conference. It's always tough. People gotta go. So I appreciate the audience. I'm going to talk a little bit about what my team at Smith Micro does with the Poser product in terms of getting 3D characters into your tool chain. We enable that by using COLLADA. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what's new in the product that we just announced yesterday, the day before yesterday. There's a number of interesting improvements in there. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about where we want to go from there, both in terms of conformance testing as well as new features that are helpful to really further the ecosystem there. So what we just announced 2 days ago are two products, Poser Pro 2012. That's a content-driven 3D tool set geared towards people that are graphics professionals in some shape or form.
Was there a party?
Excuse me? The party? Oh, we first got to ship and then we have the party. I'll send you an invitation. Excuse me. So I've tried to put down the mission that we have with every one of these products. One thing that's particularly important to us is to facilitate the use of 3D characters for people that might not have quite such a deep experience with 3D. There's illustrators. Last year I showed how to get stuff with COLLADA into Photoshop, for example. That's something that people like to do a lot. And as product designers, if you're designing a helmet to protect the head, you want to focus on designing the helmet, and if you need to visualize that, it's great to just get some help with a figure that you can showcase this on. Same story for architects and a number of other professionals. Even if you have a lot of 3D experience, you might not have a lot of time or money, and we want to help with that as well, for researchers as well as for people in production and game development. There's a lot of tasks in a typical project that we can aid with along the way. And casual gaming is a hot thing lately, so we want to build a bridge towards that as well. We also announced a new version of Poser 9. That's our kind of complete package to get started with 3D and character animation. And you can generate some pretty nice results there, and we've been doing that for over a decade, and I think we've paved the way for a lot of people that were able to get into 3D and animation that way. Today I'm going to focus on Pro 2012 because that's where the meat is in terms of COLLADA. I'm going to show a little bit the workflow in the application, as well as I want to show how to get it on the web. WebGL is taking off, so we're going to look at that a little bit. Just while I'm giving you a quick overview, I wanted to point out how researchers sometimes use our software. It's funny, last year in LA we were sitting and watching the different sessions, and two screens next to each other had actually people doing some very nice research, paper on cloud simulation and whatnot, and they were just using our figures to showcase their work. So that's a typical use that I think is very interesting for researcher and university type of people. So what's new? We have a list online if you want to check this out. I'm going to focus on the new features and improvements that are COLLADA related today. We introduced support for single skin figures with vertex weight maps. We have our own model. I'm going to show that off a little bit as well, but really we wanted to focus on interoperability this time because we want to make sure that this wealth of content that exists in our ecosystem is also accessible to other tools and game engines, for example. I'm using the term toolchain very loosely in the title of my presentation. This might be a WebGL game engine framework that you're targeting. You can create figures from scratch. There's new improved tools for that, or you can convert existing figures. We've been doing that before. And it's very fast, but it's also a little bit challenging. I wanted to show you a slide of how the joins are set up in our software traditionally. It's very powerful. You have procedural zones of influence for each joint, and separate channels, twist and bend and side to side. So this is great for making really nice rigs, but it doesn't always translate perfectly. So we both made improvements to the automatic conversion as well as introduced a new type of model that is all geared towards interoperability. You have one single weight map, linear blending, basic settings for the rig, and that should transfer pretty well. And then we allow you to see as well how it's going to look in other applications. We provide you a preview of what the export likely is going to look like in another world. And if you see that something's not quite perfect, then there's new tools that allow you to touch this up pretty easily. So the big question is, will it bend? I actually pre-recorded all my demos. I apologize, I can't do the quick restart or anything, but maybe it's a little bit smoother. What you're seeing here is that the new, one of the new figures included in the software that we use to showcase new features that we're having, and we've just exported it from COLLADA, brought it into Maya, and now.
I thought Maya said do not blend. What was that?
Don't blend it.
In the book.
I don't know. Did they say that?
Yeah, I said in the book. Don't
Okay, don't read this. So anyway, the model's being manipulated in Maya there. So that's a fairly traditional setup of a tool chain that's enabled by COLLADA, right? And in this case, everything was fine. Now, sometimes again, the transfer just has too much information that can't quite be mapped into something that looks really, really good in another application. What you see here is actually that preview mode. It's already been converted to our simple bone, single skin figure mode that previews how it's going to look in other applications. And the guy looks a little bit grumpy, and if you look very closely, you realize why he's not happy, because his shoulder is not looking good. There's a problem there. So obviously we can't use it quite like that, but there is a new tool now that allows me to either create those vertex weight from scratch or to clean up what the automatic conversion has produced. And there's very nice and powerful tools in there. I can just smooth that out real quick, and you see with just a tiny little bit of effort, suddenly the shoulder looks a whole lot better, and that ugly stair step that we had in there is gone now. And I'm going to try again all the different transformations there, and we see it's gotten a lot better now. So at this point, just to make it a little bit more interesting, then we're going to throw on a quick walk on that figure. That's another good way of either producing some fun final output, or also to judge if there's any further work needed in the mesh before exporting. And that's how it looks in Poser. And then here's the same thing in Chrome. And I used GLGE. It's a very interesting framework, and a sample file from that framework to actually load up that figure in the browser. WebGL, I think, the last year was very impressive. If we look at it in terms of SIGGRAPH years, it was working last year. I had a little showcase in my talk then, but it was really painful. You had to get the latest nightly build or a beta browser and then configure it specially, and it was slow. I mean, it worked, and it kind of gave an idea of where this is all heading, but it wasn't really all that usable. Since then, things have dramatically accelerated. The spec was finalized. It's in shipping browsers now. It's gotten remarkably fast. I was actually blown away. I'm going to show something real quick where we have put motion capture data onto a figure, and I didn't really expect that to run in real time, but it runs in real time and doesn't consume any CPU at all. Actually, it consumes GPU, of course, because we're directly using the GPU in the browser there, but performance has come a very long way. So I loaded up a robot figure from the content library in Poser, and then I also, excuse me, loaded up a motion capture data file. And now we have that fun kind of interesting looking toy robot, and he's performing a dance. And again, that's how it looks in Poser. And then I loaded this up again in the same GLGE sample in Chrome, and you can see actually even if you manipulate the camera, this all stays remarkably smooth. And even though this is just an example, obviously you wouldn't want to ship this in any shape or form. I think it shows a lot of potential, and it shows how there is a great ecosystem of digital content creation tools that now feeds into this world of WebGL-based applications that are emerging right now, both in terms of collaboration as well as productivity, and of course, very importantly, games as well. So that's exciting. With the content, please always watch for the license of the content and make sure that you take that into account. After all, with a pipeline like that, you're putting a lot on the web, a lot of information. Good. So that's the status quo. Where do we want to go from here? We have a lot of work in progress. It spans all levels. We're trying to get bending figures imported so far, because the perceived position that we have in the pipeline, we only import static models, but we want to get bending figures importing as well. We helped to specify 2 extensions to the COLLADA spec. I'm on the working group, and those were 2 extensions that were particularly important for us. Morph animation and sparse array extensions are necessary to get, let's say if you use the lip syncing features in Poser and you make a figure that's talking, you want to get that across. With the spec traditionally, it's not easy to get facial animation across if it's done in blend shapes or morph targets. So there's an extension now that cleanly allows you to manipulate the morph weights to have an animation channel for that. And also, since we're talking about human figures here that could be quite complex, and since we're having a single skin model where a morph target really affects the whole figure, we also were looking for more efficient representation. If you change the nose shape of a figure, you really don't want to export the whole rest of the figure, and the sparse array extension enables a very efficient expression of sparse datasets. So that's in ratification right now, and I'd like to encourage people to implement those extensions, because obviously if it's a one-way street, then it's not really any good. So that's kind of a call to action there. We've started performance testing, just like Nathan has showed you. I don't have any results yet that I can show you, but it's in progress. And related to that is a little research project that I have in mind. I'm not quite sure where that is going to go to, and hopefully maybe I can give an update on that next year. What I'd like to do is take the conformance test suite and make it part of a continuous integration process. Maybe not completely continuous, but at least nightly, so that when you have your build form and that gets triggered either by a check-in or by a change to the code base in that sense, or by a nightly action, that we then run through the conformance tests and then can come in the morning and see what yesterday's changes have done to the import and the export. That's, like I said, still a thought at this point, but I kind of wanted to put the thought out there, because we're benefiting tremendously from building in that way and from validating our work. And I think conformance testing is important for its own right? I mean, you have a file format specification, you have a data exchange format specification, and it really doesn't fly if it's not robust. So ensuring robustness, ensuring conformance is important, but I think there's several reasons beyond that why it makes sense to go through this process, and making it part of an automated testing setup, I think, is one particular benefit that I hope to see. Good. That was it about BOF Pro 2012 and COLLADA. And thank you all for hanging in there, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Do you run all the tests, or just a subset?
You mean nightly?
Yes.
We haven't really started doing that yet. Like I said, it's a project that I have in mind right now. The goal is to keep it fast, right? If it takes too long, then it's really no good. So if we find out that it takes 48 hours, we would probably do a subset. If it takes 6 hours, we would probably run all the tests every night, because the way how we cascade jobs, we can do that. If it takes 3 minutes, which I'm pretty sure it won't, but just hypothetically, if it took 3 or 10 minutes, then we would make it completely continuous so that every check-in gets that test applied. But I think we need some advances in hardware and in software first before that happens.
Thank you. So we do have last speaker in the room, and so it's Daniel.